comprehensive program called Export Management Training Program. This is a 6-day program, my dear friends. And for all of you who want to just get a glimpse, get a kind of a warm-up, we whet your appetite here in this particular 6 days incisive EMTP. We also do sessions on pricing and costing. We bring in successful exporters who share with you as to how they thought it was a rocket science, but then, it was simplified, and how it was demystified to them that there's a whole world out there waiting for all of us, whether youngsters, middle-aged, or older people, right? So these programs address precisely these objectives. We conduct a lot of export awareness programs also, dedicated to specific verticals. We go to different districts, and through our DICs, that is District Industry Center, and of course some places where we have our branch offices, we conduct these kind of tailor-made programs for the districts. And yes, of course, the Market Development Assistance Scheme, which is announced in every industrial policy for Karnataka, is something which is very interesting. And this is also one reason why, a lot of exporters approach us, because this scheme provides you with what I would call as a shortcut way to success in export markets. So you have a lot of delegations. People are going on delegation visits. Chambers of Commerce announce delegation visits. So do we. And there is something called a MDA calendar, which is approved at the beginning of the year, as to which are the important, significant programs of the state, which stakeholders can attend to various countries. So this particular scheme helps you to achieve your ambition of going abroad and scouting your markets. And a lot of exporters tell us that, having attended such kind of exhibitions and fairs abroad, and through this market development assistance, they have really achieved success. And here there's something like a TADA component, wherein you have almost 75% of airfare that is reimbursed to you, along with a DA component. And we have categories like Latin American countries category and rest of the world category. So a little bit of difference in the assistance as far as the TADA is concerned. We also facilitate the special economic zones from the state, and also implement this particular scheme called TIES, which is Trade Infrastructure for Export Scheme. This means that any kind of a project which has an export mandate, right, is something that we would support you with. And we are the monitoring agency for the scheme, which is a Government of India scheme. And earlier the scheme was called as ASIDE, ASIDE. And you'll be surprised, or maybe happy to know rather, that even academic institutes have availed this particular scheme. So you'll be wondering how. Like there's one particular college here in town, they availed this particular scheme, the erstwhile scheme, which was called ASIDE, to set up a Gems and Jewelry Excellence Center. And similarly, there's a college in Dharwad University which availed the scheme, and they tried to set up mineral bottling plant. So these have something absolutely linked to the export mandate, and that is how this gets sanctioned. Then we also are the nodal agency for implementation of the service sector strategy. Now, friends, I'm sure all of you have been hearing about how Honorable Prime Minister has been talking about a $5 trillion economy, and how the services sector is going to play a very, very major role, a very vital role in the days to come. And almost 24 services have been identified, of which Government of India highlighted that 12 of them are right now on the radar, which we must focus on. And Karnataka, aligning ourselves to the Government of India initiative, we shortlisted 6 service sectors for promotion. And these include, you'll again be happy to know, it is education space. Education sector as a service sector is going to get thrust in the state. Similarly, we've identified health and wellness. We've identified logistics and transport. As I said, it's a backbone. Then remittances and immigration, media and entertainment. So 6 of them are there, which we have identified right now and prepared action plans for them. And the departmental-wise actions are being taken. Then we also conduct a flagship event. It's called the Annual Export Awards for Excellence, wherein the Honorable Chief Minister of Karnataka gives away the awards to the meritorious exporters who have done well and have added to the state's economy, and of course, holistically to the nation. And this is a very interesting event, which is like encouraging and giving a leg up to the budding entrepreneurs, to the exporters of the day. And this is something very, very significant for us, for each one. And yes, of course, as I told you, the state's industrial policy comes out every 5 years. So, 2020, during COVID time, we announced the revised version of the industrial policy, which is right now in happening mode, which is being implemented. And BTPC implements the the export promotion chapter in the industrial policy. So there are a couple of incentives and schemes pertaining to the export space, which we implement. And yes, the Atmanirbhar initiatives of Government of India, like the ODOP, One District, One Product scheme. Then we talk about developing districts as export hubs, and then developing export development centers. These are all specific schemes from the Atmanirbhar space, and that's what Karnataka is also trying to implement. We've identified for every district what are the potential products, and the basket of products go into the developing districts as export hubs, wherein not just one product, but a basket of products have been identified for promotion. And yes, sensitization of stakeholders through various intellectual property right programs, IP initiatives like launch of IP cells in academia, and then giving, while we don't have an empaneled help desk, so to say, if you come up here saying that, hey, I want to file a patent, I want to file a trademark, but then yes, we do have something like an informal help desk wherein we facilitate you to the right people in town who could help you end to end with your filings in whichever IP tool it be. So this is a slice of some of the major exports and imports of the state. I'm sure you'll be happy to see the basket here. Electronics and software services. And when I take you through another slide, you'll be so proud to know that Karnataka is number one when it comes to software services exports. And that's right there up. Of course, aerospace and defense components, we're very strong there. Precision engineering components. So these are being exported from the state. Ready-made garment and silks, coffee, roast onion, gherkins, medicinal plants, pharma, petroleum.
Sorry, ma'am. Sorry, the slides are not moving.
Yeah. Okay, now you can see, right?
Now
you can see?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, now?
Now it's positive. We can see, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So here we are, electronics and software. I was saying our strengths are in these sectors: aerospace, precision engineering, ready-made garments. And in fact, in 21-22, if you look at the figures, we have done pretty well in most of the sectors. And major imports, again, crude petroleum, electronic telecom components, and all these what I've listed here. These are some of the major imports. So I think I'll have to go back each time to the slide and then put it on slideshow, then it works. Okay. Now you tell me whether this slideshow is visible.
Yeah, it's visible, ma'am. It's visible.
So I got the trick now. I'll have to go back every time and then put it up. Okay. Now, export performance of Karnataka, you can take a look at these figures. So if you look at the right side, because you'll be curious to know where we stand as far as merchandise exports are concerned, trade in goods, right? So one is trade in goods, trade in services, and overall exports. So if you look at the trade in goods, yes, we stand fourth in the country. So you can see the leaders there: Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu. And if you look at the merchandise export figures that we have put out there, the yellow one, of course, we are saying that they are leaders, and Karnataka we have highlighted to tell you that we're talking about ourselves now. So if you look at Karnataka's position, actually, where we are saying we are fourth, my dear friends, observe the growth percentage. Yes, of course, Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra, we have put out there saying they are, in the top three before Karnataka. But look at the growth percentage. So happy to tell you that Karnataka, in terms of growth, we are trying to scale up. But yes, of course, the target, of course, should always be to be the number one. So attempts are being made and several initiatives are being, either announced or being implemented to see how we can go into the first two to three slots and inch upwards. So here, if you look at the figures down, services exports, we are number one, and 41% is our share, and we've been consistent almost in over the past few years. We've remained number one as far as the services export is concerned. Yeah, I think now you can see it. So this is a comparison of statistics 2021, the COVID time, and then 21-22, the figures which we have. So you can see how the state, which was ranked 6th in merchandise exports in 2021, we inched up to 4th position. And then, as I showed you, we are ranked after Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Tamil Nadu. And our contribution also has increased from 5.2% to 6.2%. And services export, we continue to be consistent, as I said. And when it comes to overall, yes, we have slid from the first position to the second in 21-22. And the state's contribution, however, has inched up slightly. Okay, it's now 19.05% overall. If you look at the next slide, this basically again just breaking it down, whittling it down. Now, if you look at the right side, towards my right, so it would be towards your left, the merchandise exports figures. Now, for 22-23, obviously we have data available up to April to December right now. So based on that, you can see what is our position again. The last quarter figures have to come in, and then we would take a call as to this year again whether we are fourth or whether we will be able to scale up. Right now, we are on fourth. And then when you look at the overall exports, look at the overall exports for the figures that we have between April to December. So we are saying we are leading. Overall, now we have become first again. We had slid down, I told you, from first to second overall. Now we again first with the figures, whatever is available as of now. So let's see the third quarter again. Hopefully, we'll be able to sustain this. Now, moving on to the next slide, because I have to go on, go to the next and then put out the slideshow. Yes. So that was a glimpse about the organization that I work for, and which is, I'm sure, pretty significant for many of you who want to get into exports sooner or later. Now, coming to the innovation space and then linking it to the intellectual property spectrum, this is basically just to give you food for thought. Just recall the few ideas, inventions, innovation, which actually transform the global landscape. Basically, invention is nothing but something complex is there. We are trying to simplify it, give a solution. So let's think of some very simple ideas also, which can give us great solutions, right? It needn't be, always a very high technology based, intensively technology or engineering based solution only which works. There may be many other things which may be non-technical, where you can come up with an idea, with an innovation, right? And that may actually impact and transform the world. Now, as I've said, global history is testimony to this, right? Whether it was the telephone, and imagine where would we have been if we did not have our dear Graham Bell? And where would we have been, if we didn't have the Marconis and Texas of the day, the radio waves? And what about the Wright brothers? Just remember this slide, because I'll come back to it later again towards the end. You just recall the slide. Then penicillin. All these were fantastic, whether you call it discovery, idea, innovation. Everything has one thing in common. They have had some impact on the world we live in, on the stakeholders. So as I was saying, ideas need not be complex. They can be something, which looks unassuming or simple, but they have the power to impact lives. Like, for example, the best example I would say is the Post-it notes. I'm sure many of you are aware that this MNC 3M, it actually did not come out with a Post-it note. It tried something else. The product meant was something else. But by default, they ended up in something, which ended up like this. And then they wondered, hey, what do we do? And then they had a lovely management which patted them on the back and said, hey, from mistakes, from failures, that's how we lead to success. And that's how the Post-it note was born. They realized that whatever they had ended up, which they thought was a failure, they never imagined that the entire world would look up to it, right? All of us have been using it. So remember, as they say, truly indeed, failures are a stepping stone to success. A product which was not meant to be, today is there in every table, in every office. Everyone is using it. So this is the kind of thought process that each one should have, and not just think that, hey, I'm not technical, so what do I do? Why am I sitting in this class? So it's not about being technical. It's just about thinking of ideas which can click, which can help the world. So many other examples you can look up, my dear friends, whether it was a matchstick or the popsicles, the first ice candy, a lovely story of a little girl who had kept outside some, a drink outside, in the portico of the house. And early morning, she finds that it is frozen. And then she gets it all right as to how it has happened. And that's how the first ice candy was born. And the yummy potato chips also, there's a very, very amusing story you can look up on the World Wide Web as to how the concept of chips came up. Here was someone, a customer who came and asked for some kind of, some kind of fries. And when it was doled out, the customer again started giving suggestions. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And finally, when the chef did something, this is what came out. So it was like an experiment happening, and the experiment led to the birth of something so fabulous, so yummy, that I'm sure a lot of us cannot live without it. And of course, the safety pin, and especially my women, beautiful women fraternity, where would we have been without this indispensable safety pin? So looks like, oh, what's this a small thing, get it for 10 rupees, 50 rupees. But that was an invention which really, according to me, rocked the world, and especially the ladies' world. Velcro, another beautiful story out there, how it was born. Now, moving on to the next slide. Yeah. So how do we leverage the IP tools? So as I was saying, IP is a basket, right? It's a portfolio. It's not just about patents alone. Yes, patents are very strong. It's a very strong form of IP protection. All your products and your technical, the functional aspects, if you invent something, the functional aspects go in for a patent filing. Similarly, what about industrial designs, which are pretty much simpler compared to patents, because there is no functionality involved there, right? So if you come up with some very nice aesthetics associated with any product, it could be just a simple pen, it could be a chair, it could be a mouse, right? It could be just about anything, or even a cell phone. There's some particular feature about the aesthetics, about the curvatures or something you come up with, and you believe that it is something extremely novel. Please go ahead, protect it. There are ways of doing it. Each IP has its own search, has its own landscape, has its own filing mechanisms, protection, everything. So all that is something which you will get immense amount of guidance from the experts. So just think about some kind of aesthetics which you can protect as an intellectual property tool called as industrial designs. So, and of course the logos. So where do you protect your registrations? That comes under the trademark, which is nothing but another intellectual property tool. While the Trademark Act doesn't say that it is compulsory for you to register your trademark, it's always recommended, and there are many good reasons why we should do that. Primarily, we do not want anyone else to piggy ride on our brand that we have created, right? And then in the process, you lose, billions. There have been many examples where, people didn't protect their trademarks, and later they realize that somebody else has infringed it, and they have made money in the process. So it's always good to register your trademarks so that the goodwill is not exploited by somebody else. Copyrights, of course, my dear friend, Dr. Farah, an expert, a copyright, an inventor herself. She's an inventor with patents to her credits, with copyrights as well, with the books she has written, with her music. She will do a deep dive in that, and it's highly relevant for all of us, for all of you, the academia in particular, as to how plagiarism is not at all done, and we should not engage in that, not just because we're protecting an IP tool, but also because from a philosophical angle that we are a culture which professes the right things morally. So let's always remember that beyond the technical jargon and all that world that we know of, there is something called a big brother watching. And this is a nation that we are so proud of, our rich culture and heritage. So let's profess the right things, and that's copyright for you. And how do we reward, let's say, the farmers or the breeders of plants, seeds? How do we recognize their ingenuity? That's how we have another IP tool. Plant variety protection. You have an act there, there are the filing mechanisms. Everything is in place for each of these IP tools. And of course, another beautiful IP tool which is not spoken of much in forums, and which is the geographical indication, the legacy artisan tag products of the state or the country, which VTPC is the nodal agency for in the state. And we've been the pioneers in launching the first of its kind GI policy for Karnataka, and first in the country. Now, moving on to the... Yeah, this was a slide. Can we mute it? Let me just complete. There's a couple of more slides. Now, this is basically... Can I request the organizers to help me mute this disturbance coming up?
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look at this slide. Just a couple of quick IP alerts and golden rules. So when I say IP, my dear friends, we are talking holistically, be it a patent, trademark, copyrights, designs, GI, whatever. It's generally just you can remember all these useful tips. So in particular, if suppose you are going to set up shop, your own entrepreneurship, setting up a startup or whatever, you have to remember that we have to learn to respect others' intellectual property. So if you feel that you're setting up, let's say, a mobile phone shop, you ought to know that you are not infringing any third-party rights, not infringing any other inventors' patent, for example, which may have been filed, or a copyright or a trademark. You have to ensure, do a due diligence, because if you don't do that, you're in for trouble. You set up shop and you have infringed, let's say, a number of XYZ people's components and parts which they had actually patented, let's say, or trademarked or copyrights, whatever. Then that amounts to infringement, IP infringement. You cannot do that. Now you may ask, how do we know then? How do you know? There are millions of people in this world. How do I know that somebody has taken it? Well, there is a way for that. There's an organized professional way of doing a prior art search. And we conduct incisive sessions on this as well for academia. So if you're interested, we can conduct a half day or maybe a full day program also on how you can do your preliminary prior art search to know that, rule out that nobody else has that particular invention that you are talking about and which you want to file. Then there's something called freedom to operate. Like, while I wouldn't go deep into it, you should understand that if you're launching a product, okay, you're launching a product, then you have to again check that because the technology goes on advancing, right? And somebody else should not have already had an IP on that. So all these are, things which are very, very significant. We have to check. We should not infringe. And in IP, as I've said, ignorance is not bliss. We cannot say tomorrow, I did not know, I'm not an IP person, I'm a non-IP, so, so what? No, there are ways, and there's a law there, there's an act there for each of these, and these infringements can really take a toll. And let me tell you that, not just Karnataka, but all the states, and especially Bangalore, which is the hub of many MNCs, they have housed specifically infringement cells. And that's a big, big business. So while in the lighter vein, but on a serious note, if people ask me what are the booming careers in IP, I would vote for infringements, because a big brother is watching. Everybody is watching, waiting to see who's infringing what. And that's like a big, big business there. So I'm sure you don't want to burn your fingers, and you don't want to, lose your hard-earned money, and make it for better use in your IP space. And importantly, as I've said, please, my dear friends, be aware of your IP rights. As I said, each IP has an act, it has a framework, it has a fabric. You have to be aware of our basic IP rights. And that precisely explains the landmark victory cases that India won with respect to turmeric, neem, and so many more. To just quickly recall turmeric, I'm sure many of you are aware that 2 Indians based out of the US had patented a drug in which turmeric was used. And turmeric, as you all know, is a rich repository of India, which is called as TK. Traditional knowledge, these 2 words are very, very powerful. Traditional knowledge is nothing but another intellectual property tool. And it is already India's rich repository. It's an IP for India under TK. And how is it then that the US Patent Office could grant patents to a drug which these 2 Indians had come up with, where turmeric was there? So what happened? India fought this case, and the USPTO said, well, get evidence. We said, we are happy to do that. And then we pulled out the scriptures from the verses, from the Vedas, and from our rich repository. We pulled out stuff to prove the evidence that India, indeed, turmeric belongs to India, and we mean business, and nobody better mess up with us. We are aware of our rights. And that's how the CSIR fought it out. This was a landmark victory for the country. Of course, you have neem, basmati, and many more, which we are proud to talk about, and also another injection called the Gilvec drug, which was priced very high. So all these were cases where India was aware of her rights, and that is how we ensured that people do not mess up with us, and in our territory, nothing wrong happens. So all of us should remember this golden rule of the thumb. So this is, one slide which I was telling you I'll come back to. I had shown you that particular slide in the beginning where you had Graham Bell's telephone, you have radio, you had aeroplane and all that. So I'm just saying, what is so common between all of them? Remember, my dear friends, that inventors, the great inventors who are associated with these inventions, they were actually not the first ones. They were not the first ones to come up with, whether it was Graham Bell, whether it was Edison, whether it was, the radio, the Marconi or, Texas, and whether it was any other, all of these, whether it was Michael Jackson's, that shoe that he had patented. Do not think that they were the first people actually who came up with that idea. But they went to the Hall of Fame because they knew that they had to file their invention at the right time and the right place. And they were the first to go ahead and file it, while hundreds had done. History talks only about these great giants because they leveraged the right time and they understood that they had to be the first to file the invention and not waste time. Otherwise, you are the loser. Now, coming to geographical indications as a very important IP tool, where I said we are the nodal agency in the state. So you'll be proud to know that as in today, as I talk to you, the total number of GIs in the country is 432. And of this, Karnataka is a leader with the maximum share. Of course, Tamil Nadu has also inched up now. But if you look at our total figure, which is actually 46, because we have 4 logos also, which were granted the status of GI tag. So we are the leaders with maximum number of GIs in the country. So you can see this breakup. Agriculture, we have 22, handicraft 16, manufactured goods 3, and in the foodstuffs category, there's only 1. And of course, the logos, as I was telling you. So just take a look at this, and this will be something which you can take home. If you look at the GI coffees, we are the GI coffee hub of the country. There are 7 GI coffee varieties which have been registered. These are all, GIs are basically, something very significant which emanate from a particular region or locality. These are the heritage and traditional legacies of any state or country. So these coffees which I have put out there, Coorg Arabica, Monsoon Malabar, Robusta, Arabica, Baba Budangiris, and then all of these, we have 5 GI tagged coffees in the country out of 7 which have come to Karnataka. Very, very special about them, and that's why they get a GI tag. Similarly, Sirsi Supari, that's another GI in the agri segment. And look at the Mysore Rosewood Inlay in the handicraft segment, Mysore traditional paintings, Ganjifa cards. Not sure whether you're able to see the background that I'm sitting in my cabin. You can see 2 paintings which are Ganjifa card paintings. And that is a languishing art which we need to promote and patronize. And I'm sure all of you, my young friends in particular, will try to promote them as mementos and gifts, besides your other gifts, pool and all that, and promote the artisans. Similarly, look at the saris. You have Molkal Muru sari there. You have Channapatna toys. You may have heard of a lot of these products, but perhaps you did not know that it has a special feature called as geographical indication, which is an intellectual property. Similarly, Kinhal toys. You have beautiful history about each of these. For example, when I say Kinhal toys, so what is special about them? They are being handed over from generations. You know something? The tamarins, the seeds of the tamarind tree are used as glue. So that's a natural glue that they're using. They're not using our typical, the glue which is available in the market, the synthetic ones. Manual processes are being used.
Narayan sir, please mute it. Narayan sir.
So if you look at the other handicrafts like Bidri ware from Bidar region, Karnataka bronze, double guntaris, Udupi sari, another interesting one which needs promotion, and especially my women fraternity, I would request you to patronize it. More on that in a different session on GI. I'm not going into a deep dive. Basically, to let you know that these are some of the rich traditional treasures of Karnataka. See, agri, there's so many there, as you can see. Green cardamom, Mysore beetle leaf. You may have heard of all of these, but you never knew perhaps that these are GI products. And the only one in foodstuffs category is Dharwad Peda as of now. That's the only one. And in the manufactured goods, of course, you have the Mysore sandal soap, your Mysore sandalwood oil, and Mysore agarbatti. These are some of the important GIs of Karnataka. In fact, I have another slide on this, which I am not showing you right now.
Sorry to interrupt.
42 GIs. Friends, I request you to please go on mute.
Nagesh sir, please mute Shivamurthy sir.
Yeah, I'm almost coming towards the end of my slide. So these are initiatives. These are some of the government initiatives to nurture the geographical indication space. As I said, exclusive GI policy, which is basically more of a promotional measure, marketing, branding, and all of that. And then, we are doing something called authorized user drive across GI clusters, like meaning that if it was an ordinary, any other product, not ordinary, any other product, you and me can enter the space. We know we'll have to go to the ROC, set up shop and all of that. However, when it is a GI tag product, like the slide that I showed you, like let's say Channapatna Toys or Kinal Toys, you want to enter into manufacturing or trading, there are rules of the game. You and me cannot simply enter into that space because it's as per the act, you have to register yourself as an authorized user. Right? So in Karnataka, we had only 8 authorized users across 42 products 4 years ago. Now the number stands, as I talk to you, our number stands at 1,911. Authorized users have been registered across various crafts and some crops. And it is here I would give a big call to all of you, my dear friends. All of you can in your own way support this particular cause. How? Somebody who's doing Channapatna Toys, who's making, let's say, Bidriware or any other GI tag product. You can just ask them whether they've registered as an authorized user. If not, ask them to contact VTPC, the nodal agency, for helping them register. Very simple process with a few forms and a checklist, and we will facilitate it for you. Tomorrow, you want to enter as a trader, or if you think you could be a manufacturer because you belong to the GI map region. Every GI tag product has a GI map region. I cannot say that, I'm a Channapatna Toys seller and I'm sitting in Bagalkot. No, it's very, very region specific. But you could do that if you are a trader. You can source it from the registered guys and you can be a trader. So tomorrow, if you want to, trade in these kind of goods or manufacture, please get in touch with us. We will advise and guide you as to how you can go about it. And let me also tell you a very interesting and happy thing, and I'm proud about it, that in the authorized user drive registration, some of the colleges also, academia played a very big role, and they joined hands with us and they showed that passion to say that, yes, we want to promote the traditional legacies of the state. So let's join hands, let's collaborate. And that's how we are here. We've conducted a lot of diagnostic studies of a couple of GI tag products. We've selected to see as to what is the SWOT analysis, what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, where is it that we can give interventions. And this is also another space which academia can join hands. And we also give a spotlight to these GI products at exhibitions and trade fairs, where the state already conducts such programs. What we have done is we have dedicating an exclusive pavilion or a bay to the GI tag products, and we facilitate them through our market development assistance scheme. And as I was telling you, the Atmanirbhar initiatives like ODOP and developing districts as export hubs, in all these initiatives, my dear friends, GI tag products also have found a place. And that's how I'm very excited that a very, very significant IP tool is being nurtured. Like, as I said, we are also in the first leg of our journey. We're trying our best to see what best could be done, in the scope that we have and in the kind of opportunities that abound. GI tourism, yes, we have proposed Karnataka Pavilion at the airport, which will house GI tag products and also the other heritage products of the state. This is in happening mode. And Terminal 2, not sure whether you were able to see this slide. Just a minute. In Terminal 2 of the Kempegowda International Airport, we have negotiated spaces both in the domestic and international terminal, and it's a matter of time that you'll be able to see when you fly in and fly out a beautiful Karnataka Pavilion, hopefully soon, which would showcase the GI products. And of course, please drop into VTPC's own old building space, which is renovated, which is just next to Visvesvaraya Museum on Kasturba Road. In fact, we are flanked on either sides by the museum and Yes Bank. And you can come and take a look at our 2000 sprawling expanse, which we have dedicated to GIs of Karnataka. And a couple of new GI filings we are working on. We have already filed one new GI in the textile segment, which is Pattada Anchu Sari and Fabrics. This is a 200-year-old ancient sari legacy, which VTPC has, again, another academic institute has been with us in this endeavor. And we have already filed this particular GI from Karnataka, and we are waiting the examination and sanction. And that apart, a couple of other GIs are in the process of being filed. You have Hase Chitra, you have Kavi Kale, Sive Coffee, and then Malu Stone Sculpture, Kaga Rice. These are some of the GIs, potential ones, which we are working on right now. And hopefully in a short while, we should be able to see, these filings as well from the state. So that's from me, my dear friends. One big call that I would like to give is, let's patronize, promote our artisans, because they mirror our rich heritage and culture. So in whichever small way that you can, promote the GI tag products as mementos, as gifts, encourage all the millennials of the day and all the youngsters also to take a look at these products also, besides so many other products and fancy products that we look in and day out on e-commerce sites, etc. Right? So on that note, thanks a ton for your time. And here's hoping that you're able to take away 2 cents, from a little bit of whatever I deliberated today. These are basically, some of them are my experiences as well, and also some major trends which I believe all of us should ought to know. There's more to go, as they say, miles to go before you sleep, but all that would be done when we do a whittling down of sessions in the series ahead. On that note, thanks a ton once again, everyone, for being all ears, and over to Dr. Farah and the organizers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your enlightenful issues in explaining all the IP dimensions of different issues and the role of VTPC in making pioneer of IPs in Pan India. And thank you for your delighted lecture. Thank you, ma'am. And the questions, anything we have, we'll request the audience or participants to put it in chat box. Or once the Farah ma'am presentation is done, we'll open the floor to discuss.
Sure.
Now I welcome Farah ma'am. So we are all waiting to understand the issues of copyrights and ethical aspects of research writings. I welcome Farah ma'am for your insightful presentation. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And Prabha, that was a very nice presentation and an overview. What we'll do, we'll finish this session as well, and then we'll take the question and answers after my presentation. And you can also put the questions in the chat box, and we'll have a look at it. So I'll just go ahead and put up my slide deck. So is it visible? Can you please confirm?
No, ma'am.
You cannot see?
No. We can't see, ma'am.
Prabha, okay, share.
Have I not removed my presentation?
I'll just check.
You removed it, ma'am. You have removed it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. It's not allowing me to do that.
Probably the organizers have to give you access, I guess, speaker access.
No. So it is not showing me. Okay, I'll just try.
Also, I face this problem where I have to go back to each slide and then put it on slideshow, say individually.
No,
I'm
it's not allowing me.
You have that problem, not sure.
It's not allowing me to do that. I'll just check for more options.
Or else, Farah, I think you have shared it with Professor Sundarvalli, right?
Yeah, I have. I'll just try.
Yeah, or else the college can run it through.
No, it's not allowing me to. You have to give me the access, I suppose. It's not allowing me to show the slide deck.
Okay.
Nagesh sir, can you please intervene? Or Jagdish sir, can you please help out?
I don't have the admin access.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, Professor Sundarvalli, can you run it through? Farah had already shared it with you. The deck.
The deck is in your email.
Yeah, give me 2 minutes, ma'am.
Yeah, sure.
Should allow. Is it visible now?
2
Is it
minutes,
No,
ma'am.
not yet. Not yet.
Not yet?
No.
It's not allowing me to do that. Should not do that.
Then I think the organizers have to help,
Yeah,
just
it's not giving me.
2 minutes, ma'am, doing it.
It says there's an error in screen sharing. No.
Doing it, ma'am.
Okay, please put it on slideshow and I can just go ahead with the presentation then.
Is it visible now, ma'am?
No. Yeah, it says loading. Yeah, please put it on slideshow.
Is it visible now, ma'am? For me, it's visible here.
Yeah, it's not showing it on the meeting board. Yeah.
Is it visible now,
Yeah,
ma'am?
it's visible. Please go to the first slide. Yeah, this is the second slide. Okay, all
Oh.
right. Please go to the bottom and do a slideshow. Otherwise, the full screen will not come. No,
Oh.
to the bottom of the slide deck, and there's a thing called slideshow.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm done, ma'am.
Again, it's not showing.
Yeah, it doesn't present if it is in slideshow mode, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Please go to the other one and we'll start from here. We'll manage from here. I don't know what's the technical problem. All right. So let's bear with this. I'm sorry about the visuals here, but let's go ahead with the presentation. I think there's a technical problem somewhere. All right. So we have already spoken to you about the different instruments of trade-related intellectual property rights, which is industrial rights, such as patents, trademarks, etc. On the other hand is the copyrights, which is very important for a data-driven world. Next slide, please. So copyright is basically any original work of authorship which is fixed in a tangible medium of expression. That means if you have an idea about a story and you have put it in a short story format and published, or you have written a novel, so that is a tangible expression of your idea. Now, anything to do with music, books, plays, even software and databases. So different countries have different laws. So in India, software is protected by copyright. So it becomes very important because we have a thriving software industry. And of course, you've heard about movies and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of involvement of intellectual property in these kind of works that are there in the public. Next slide, please. So publishing industry itself is a high-end industry, and there is so much of investment that goes on, the technical as well as the literary publication.
Holiday.
Okay, next one, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so copyright is basically a right against copying. That means you have written something which is an intellectual work and it should be protected. So it protects any original work against imitation or reproduction of different copies. Somebody else cannot copy your book and sell it to the market because you lose commercially. So apart from the original books and novels and movies and all, you can also have a commentary or a translation or a compilation. So those are very important intellectual properties which can be protected by copyright. Next slide, please. Please go ahead. Just Yeah. So it's a bundle of rights. You can have as many copies you want to produce. You can communicate it to the public. So you'd have heard about a book called The Guide, and we have movies on that. Similarly, Da Vinci Code was made into a movie. So from a book, it can be adapted to a play or a show or a movie. So I put my book here, Rain Shadow. So you can take the book and make it into a series, or you can make it into a movie, but you have to take the permission from the copyright holder. So that's why the bundle of rights is there. Anybody wants to translate your work, they have to take the permission of the author. This is very important. Okay, next slide, please. So all this has become very important since the digital revolution. We are in an IT boom. So that IT boom has allowed a lot of data to come into the public view, which you can use. You have YouTube videos, you have different kinds of books and periodicals which have been digitized. So from 1994 onwards, it became a very important thing that we understand what is copyright and how we can use it while we are commercializing and making money out of it. So next slide, please. So whatever you produce, you create a novel or a book. So I'm giving the example of my own novel, Corporate Curry. So what you do, when you open the book, you see that there is a copyright notice. It will say that so-and-so. So this is the name of the book, Corporate Curry, copyright 2011, name of the author, and it says all rights reserved. So this is the first thing we need to do when we create a work of art. And if you have a second edition, you will have all the information on that page. So this is the way to first protect it. Then, next slide, please. We can also go ahead and register it. So there's a National Copyright Office and there's a law. Accordingly, it will be registered. Next slide, please. So you have to file an application and it will go through the process. And if it is compliant, it will be taken forward and you'll get a certificate. So this is the right way of going about filing a copyright in the Copyright Office. Next slide, please. So it can be for any logo. So here it says a literary festival. So they will take a logo so that other people cannot misuse the same logo. So they have a certificate which is issued by the Copyright Authority. Next slide, please. So this is a certificate given to Indian Singers' Rights Association. So now there's a community of people and it's a collective rights organization. So you know that all the Bollywood music that is produced, so they will be under the ISRA, and the revenue that is generated through the sale of the work should go to the different people who are involved in that, because a community of artists should be benefited. Okay, so there are rules so that a group of people can have a collective right and they can share the revenues. So any commercial value has to be driven back to the people who created the work. Next slide, please. Okay, so copyright is a very simple right. The moment you write something and you put a copyright notice on it, you can easily register and get a copyright. Whereas patent has very stringent criteria. So literary and artistic works, all those things are there, and it's easier to just register and go ahead with your work. And the term is lifetime of the author plus 60 years. We have to remember that because we'll discuss what is in public domain, what are the different rights, what is fair use. So we'll discuss that as we go further. So patents are granted by the Patent Office based on stringent criteria, but copyright is easier to get. But there are other issues with it. So we'll discuss that. Next slide, please. So for published works, cinematography, the lifetime of the author plus 60 years after the death is the term. It's very important to understand. For a patent, the term is 20 years. So performers' rights are for 50 years and so on. So this is a term given by the legal, in terms of legal parlance. Next one. Next slide. Yeah. So now who's the author? So you have a work, which is a literary or dramatic work. The person who created or wrote down that work is the author. The composer, the music composer, A.R. Rahman or Ilaiyaraaja, these are all the people who create musical work, original works. Cinema, the producer, any sound recording, a photograph, the person who takes the photograph will be the owner. So the author is very important. So you generate a software program. The people who created that software program will be the authors. So we should understand and acknowledge the author. This is very important in copyright. Next slide, please. So these are the poets and novelists and playwrights and lyricists whom we appreciate. And we are all creating copyright. We are writing books. We are writing short stories. We are publishing articles. We are creating music. And we appreciate that somebody has the ability to create certain original works that everybody can enjoy. So we are fans of these people. Next one. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the person who creates is the author. But as any intellectual property or any property, you can again assign it or sell it or license it. So you have a software, you need a antivirus in your computer. What will you do? You will buy a license of a particular, say, a McAfee or whatever. So somebody created that. You are licensing it for a term of, say, 1 year or 2 years. You pay for that. So the author can assign it, can sell it, can license it. So you should understand that there is an author, there's a creator of an original work. So if it's a software, you will have to buy it. If it's a book, you will have to pay the money and buy the book. So the author is the first copyright owner, but the person can sell it off to a publishing house, and the publishing house owns the rights. Or if you have commissioned somebody, given a contract to create a particular software, you will have to ask them to sign an agreement that I assign it back to the people who contracted me for this work. Otherwise, they'll claim ownership. So these are very important things because there will be legal issues otherwise. So it should be very clear whether you own the right or have you given it off to people for a price of for money or in exchange of other intellectual property. There are different ways of dealing with it. Next one, please. So the owner of the copyright has exclusive right to create copies, to create derivative work. So you translate into other languages, you sell it to a publisher, you create 1,000 copies of your work. It's up to you. And we have economic and moral rights. Even if we sell the work to somebody, still you have moral rights. Nobody can obliterate your work. Nobody can deface your work. Because even if you have sold it to somebody, say an architectural building, you have sold, but you have sold your copyright also on the design of that building. But somebody is defacing it. What will you do? You will have moral rights that this is my work. I do not want it to be defaced because it affects my reputation. So it's very important that we understand who's an author and what are their rights. Next slide, please. So what is very important is the computer software related inventions. And in India, we cannot have a patent unless there are tests that are satisfied, legal tests. So what we do, we have a copyright because the written work, the source code is in a text format. So hardware or functional components or devices you can patent related to computer software. But the software itself is in a literary form. It's written down. The source code is written down. So it will be copyright protected. Or you can have other IP protection tools such as trade secrets and trademarks put on that as well. So it may be a bundle of things that you can do. Next slide, please. So because these are emerging technologies and people don't have any idea, the ideas are still evolving in the legal realm also. So the Patent Office gave guidelines. So any software is patentable only after satisfying certain criteria, that it is occurring in conjunction with the hardware. Okay, it's an engineering thing. But if it's just a written code, it has to be copyright protected. Because something which is an algorithm, okay, which is a conceptual thing, a method of business or a mathematical model, it will be non-patentable subject matter because there are strict criteria what can be patentable, what is tangible enough to be patented. So, and other things they'll put through a test. So you have a machine and you have a software that works in conjunction with the machine, then you can have a patent, may or may not, depending on the case-by-case basis. So it's very important to determine patentability. You cannot have a patent on an algorithm, or you cannot have something which is a software So what will you do? You'll take a copyright on that. So this is very important to understand what is patentable, what is not. If not patentable, then you'll go for a copyright. And for software source code, obviously you will get a copyright. Next one, please. So these things were emerging throughout these last 3 decades, and a lot of litigation was around the software patents because it's an emerging technology. Next slide, please. So we'll take this case of Ellis Corporation versus CLS, which is both of them are financial institutions. So basically, the patents were about a method for exchanging financial obligations. So the computer system is configured to carry out a method for exchange. So you send the money, it is standing somewhere, and then it goes to the other one. So they went to the court, and the court said, this is an abstract idea that there is money and then it comes, sits here, and then it is distributed. So it's a non-patentable subject matter. There's nothing tangible in that software that can be patented. So there are a lot of gray areas. So anything which is about an intangible asset cannot have a patent on it. So then they said, go ahead, take a copyright on that. So these are the cases that we are seeing. Next slide, please. So we understand that some software which has a mechanical or effect on a machine and it affects the working of a machine may or may not be patentable depending on the test. But software is debatable. They will put it through the test, give a copyright or a patent depending on how it is. So the test has to be put, a legal test have to be done, and then we'll see whether it is a patentable invention or not. Because everything is case by case right now. Next slide, please. Yeah, so there's a case which has been going on about whether Google versus Oracle. So there is this JavaScript that is there. So Oracle said that Google has taken it for Android programming. And most of the people own an Android phone and very few people own iOS because their software is different. Android is open source, so a lot of people can afford it because the cost is not much. Whereas iOS is a huge cost associated with it. It's a proprietary software. So we'll discuss more on this as we go further. But the case between Google and Oracle, the lower court said it's fair use. It's copyrightable, but it's fair use. They have taken it for a public good. They have developed a program based on Android. Next slide, please. So it went to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said, yes, they have the right on application programming interfaces, but Oracle's work is very, very fundamental to the technology itself. So you cannot lock something under IP and not have other people develop it. Because for the benefit of the society, we want to acknowledge the author and inventor and give them commercial benefit. But if you lock everything under IP, then how will the innovation happen? So they said this is fair use. So you understand there's a right and people are allowed to commercially benefit from that right. But if it stops innovation, then the court will say, let it be a fair use. Let everybody else go ahead and develop it. So that's what happens with Android, and it remains affordable. So there's always a debate between private ownership versus public good. And we'll see it how they have solved these problems further on. Next, please. So they said that the application program APIs were copyrightable, and Google took it for Android development. Fine, it was fair use. And since they are functional aspects, you cannot apply traditional methods on that and say that this is done because the technology is advancing very fast. So when something is very fundamental and it is fair to use certain parts of it with acknowledgement. So how do you acknowledge? We'll discuss further. So the court said Google has not violated the copyright law and it is fair use. Next slide, please. So now this picture is called A Recent Entrance to Paradise. And the author is the Creativity Machine. So it's a beautiful picture, but who created it? Because for any work of art, there has to be an author. Now, who's the author? They say by the Creativity Machine. Next slide, please. Okay. So this particular work was done by a software which is an AI system. This is called DABUS. So it's a device for automated bootstrapping of unified sentience. That means somebody sees something, conceptualizes something, feels a sentiment, and puts it in the form of a painting. So there's sentiment involved there. And it is saying something. It's a beautiful picture. But it is created by an AI system. Now, who is the owner of that system? Who's the author? Who's the person who should be benefited? So now we are in the gray area of high tech and the legal system yet to catch up. Next slide, please. So they filed the application in UK, US, and Europe. In all three jurisdictions, they rejected the AI system as an inventor on this. But in other geographies in South America, South Africa, and Australia, the Patent Office allowed it to be one of the inventors, the AI system DABUS as the inventor. So now the territorial rights, you see, in some geographies it's allowed, in some geographies it's not allowed. So it's again going case by case, how to deal with AI and the intellectual properties associated with it. Next slide, please. So basically, what was the patent? It was about a can. Okay, the surface of the can had a fractal design. So when you stack all those containers together, the cans together, it will be easy to transport because they will not move. So this is very simple. So it was designed by an AI system. So the Patent Office didn't know that it's an AI system designed product. They just went through the search. Next slide, please. So they went to the databases for patent databases and searched. So there were other applications which had similar concepts. So they said there's nothing novel. Other people have also filed similar applications and about cans with indentations so that they don't move while transporting. Then later it was understood that one of the inventors in the application was an AI system. So now there are two things. One is lack of novelty because it's nothing new. A human brain has already created it. Later on, an AI system has created a similar product, which is mathematically perfect. So now we are at the edge of the cutting edge of technology. And these are the kind of questions that the courts are facing. These are the kind of questions that we are creating for ourselves by using AI systems. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of discussion right now on ChatGPT, which is also a natural language processing tool. So now it's not just a tool, it is making decisions without involving human intervention. But as I said, copyright or any work has to be an original work and should have a human author. So now when you have an AI system, you don't have a human author. So these are the implications for the copyright law. How do we define who's going to patent it, who's going to copyright it, who's the owner, who's the beneficiary? So these debates are ongoing. Next one, please. So the World Intellectual Property Organization has created these debates and we are discussing how we have to go about it. And as the technologies evolved, you see generation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll also see the debate about intellectual properties and who owns it, because we need to create new guidelines because the legal system is yet to catch up. So the discussions are on and the morality of it. The children are using ChatGPT for their assignments. So how do we deal with it? So this is happening right now. Next question, please. Next slide, please. So the patentability criteria, the IP criteria for copyright are evolving and we have to keep pace with the developments because the technology is moving faster than everything else. So we'll get clarity about so many things. What can we put in which bucket? This is copyrightable, this is patentable, this is industrial design, this is trademark, and a combination of all of them. So that's what we are doing, educating all of us here and discussing these issues that are coming up. Next slide, please. So this Nokia versus Apple. So when Apple created the touchscreen technology, Nokia had already patented that, had a copyright on that touchscreen. So they went and sued Apple. They said, we have a patent in 1999 on touchscreen. So now what happens? Whatever Apple is selling, they have to give a royalty to Nokia because they already had a right on it. So this is how powerful these intellectual properties are. And they will get royalties in perpetuity. Till you sell touchscreen, it will go on. So this is high-end technology and very high revenue production is happening. So it's a highly competitive world, and we must be aware how this game is being played. Next one, please. So this is a photograph. The black and white is a photograph. The colored one is the sculpture. So somebody took a photograph, somebody made a sculpture out of it. So now he said, the original author said, this is my photograph you have taken and made a sculpture. So you should pay me royalty for my work you have used. So the guy said, no, this is fair use. So they went to the court, of course. Next slide, please. So now two things are there. The infringer, the person who has infringed your intellectual property, had access to your work, and then he's created something substantially similar. So any person can see that and say that this photograph and the sculpture is almost similar. So now the court said, okay, go ahead and do a monetary settlement, because the person who's the author of the photograph should be given the due respect and the commercial benefit. So this is how it is. If you know your rights, if you know what is fair use, you will not be in soup. Otherwise, you'll land up in legal trouble and you have to pay up. Next slide, please. So now, a person called Prince. So he's a rock star. So somebody took a photograph of him, and Goldsmith took a photograph of him, and then somebody created a poster out of it. So now they've gone to court whether you can do this or not. So see how digital area is giving us so many options, but is it fair to use it or not? It's up to us. Okay, next slide, please. So I hope somebody has read this book, The Picture of Dorian Gray. It is by Oscar Wilde. So this photograph of Oscar Wilde is very much seen in the internet. So there was a case, and they went to the court, and US court said, yes, photograph. See, this is 1884. So they said, yeah, photograph is a form of art, and we'll give copyright over it. So basically, there is some involvement of intellectual work in how he posed the photograph. So it's long back. Now it's clear that photograph is copyrightable. So it has evolved from how much effort somebody put to compose a photograph, which becomes an intellectual property, and so on. Next slide, please. So this movie, Band Baja Barat versus Zabardast in Telugu. So they went to the court because theme, concept, plot, character sketches, these are all matching. That means somebody has tried to copy it. So it is infringement of the original copyright. Next, please. So this came out last couple of months, Varaha Rupam and Navarasam. You can go to YouTube, see both the videos. So is it an inspired work? There was a video by Thaigudam Bridge. So they have a sequence of violins, and then they have drums, then they have guitar sequence, and then the same reference format has been taken and made up in Kantara. So there was a lot of controversy and still going on. So you can go and do your homework and check out whether both of them are similar. Is it inspired, or they've just taken the reference template and modified it for themselves? So there is a case there. So these are happening, and makes very interesting cases to understand what is copyright and how it can be infringed by other people, in what form it can be recreated, and it happens very often. Next, please. So now Facebook changed into Meta, and the signature, the new signage is an infinity sign. So there is hardly any originality in it because so many people have the same sign. So to create something new, a brand or anything, you need to be original. You should have something new that people can appreciate as a distinct sign. So there's no distinctness in this. So whenever you create some original work, it should have distinctness to it. It's very important. Otherwise, you will not be recognized by that sign, because branding itself is a huge business. Okay, next one, please. So what is infringement? Basically is you're infringing on the copyright other person's copyright. It's very important to understand this, especially in academic context, because you can land up in serious trouble. Your thesis can be rejected, your dissertation can be rejected, you cannot submit your assignment. So from the internet, it's a great source of information, but it's also breeding plagiarism. Should understand what is copyright, how to use it in the right way. Otherwise, you will be plagiarizing and you'll be losing some people have lost their degrees because people cannot be allowed to submit their thesis because of plagiarism. So we'll just discuss that. Next slide, please. So any protected work has exclusive rights. If you infringe on that, you produce copies and distribute, display some work, make derivative works, it is not done. It will be considered copyright infringement. And if you have copied and pasted, it will be plagiarism. Next one, please. So any unauthorized act of imitation of an original work, and you have not taken permission from that or given proper citation, then you will be taken to court. So it's a cognizable offense and you can go to jail for that. Next one, please. So making copies, public performance without taking permission, pirating books and movies and all, it happens, but it's illegal. Next one, please. So in research ethics are very, very important. So first we should understand what is the IP, what is the form of that IP, and how you're using it. There's a right way of doing it. So let's discuss that. Next one, please. So whenever you do research, there will be a code of conduct and ethical practices that we need to follow. If you do not do that, you'll land up in trouble. 3 years down the line, your thesis will be rejected. So we don't want that to happen, and we want to keep you informed. Next slide, please. So how an organization defines what is ethical, what is not. So the UGC has put guidelines for responsible conduct of research, and we have to keep high ethical standards. Then only your work will be considered for submission. Next slide, please. So sometimes it is unintentional. Some people are not aware. So now we are making you aware of what is the right way of doing things. Some people do it even when they know it. So that is malpractice. And research misconduct is not when you have an error in your data or error in your work. You have a difference of opinion. That's fine. But you cannot misappropriate somebody else's work because it will be considered against the research ethics. Next slide, please. So some people don't even conduct the lab experiment and then they put the data. It's called dry labbing. Or you're fudging the data, what you have gotten. So you conducted a survey and you fudge the data to suit yourself. That's not done. Then plagiarism is, again, a moral crime. You take somebody else's idea and results or research work and you present it as your own without giving appropriate credit. Next slide, please. So whenever you are told by your advisor to go and define your project, okay, this is your project, what will you do? You'll review the literature. You'll find whatever is out there and you will read through it, and then you'll present. So there's a method to it. There's a scientific method. Then you will collate the information, you'll form a hypothesis, you'll work on your thesis, you'll do your lab work. In the end, you will publish a paper or you'll create a dissertation or thesis. But then there's a list of reference that has to be there in a proper format when you present the data to the examiner. So they will ask you whether you have created a list of references and cited the references. Okay, it's very, very important for any research scholars, any teachers to understand and make it known to their students that if they're submitting assignments, what is the right way of doing it. Next slide, please. So we'll go through the whole process and there is a format. You will write your review of literature, your objective, what is your research methodology, and so on. In the end, you will give the acknowledgement of all the sources. If you've taken a photograph, you'll take the proper citation. If you've taken a graph from somewhere, you will give the proper citation. And if required, you have to take the permission of the authors. Next slide, please. So basically, how do you conduct a search? So your professor said, go ahead and do this particular topic. You have a keyword set. So that set of keywords you will take and you will run it through and get all the information. Okay, then you have to analyze and finally you will report depending on what is your area of interest. Next slide, please. So you can use reference managers to collate your data in one place and then go ahead with a research. Next slide, please. So whenever you use scientific or technical literature in research process, you have to cite the references. And then I've marked at the bottom CC, what is Creative Commons and all. We'll discuss that as well. So you should know how to conduct your research in a manner that will be considered proper and ethical. Next slide, please. So basically, what is plagiarism? It is taking somebody else's original idea. Now, let's make a difference. I said, when I talked about copyright, tangible expression of an idea. But in plagiarism, we are talking about raw data. We're talking about the idea itself. So it has happened that somebody has taken somebody else's idea and made it into a document and presented it as their own. Okay, which is not copyright violation, but it is unethical, and especially in an academic setup. So it is unethical and unattributed use of somebody else's original work. That is plagiarism. Next one, please. So you can have thoughts, ideas, words and expressions, data. You could have taken data from somebody else and put it in your work. So it's a false claim of authorship, which is morally wrong. Next slide, please. So copyright is a legal term, but plagiarism is an ethical term. So there will be common areas between both, but basically understand somebody has a copyright, registered copyright, and you're using it as work, and you're not even citing the reference. Whereas somebody had the idea and you have taken the idea and developed it on your own and said that this is my idea, that is plagiarism. Next one, please. So basically, you're not citing the reference or attributing that this person has done the original work. So first is to be aware what is wrong. What is a right? What is an intellectual property right? A copyright. And then if you have taken and copied and pasted everything as such, that's plagiarism and you can be penalized for that. Next one, please. So basically somebody wrote Hamlet, which is Shakespeare. So that was Shakespeare thing was 1400 something. He's dead, long gone. So the copyright is expired the moment the author is dead, plus 60 years have expired. Everybody knows Hamlet is Shakespeare's. But what you do, you translate it into some local language and say that this is my work. Okay, so you're fooling your readers, basically. The copyright is over. The legal term of the copyright is over, and you are misappropriating it. But it is beyond copyright. The term is over. So you're not illegal, but you are unethical. But in research and academic environment, that unethical thing can land you in trouble. So we should understand that. Next slide, please. So Sharat Chandra Chattopadhyay, he wrote so many novels. One was Devdas. Next slide, please. So Devdas was made into so many translations, so many movies, so many versions. So these people have to say precisely that Devdas is written by Sharat Chandra and we are adapting it into a movie. Next slide, please. So that adaptation in 2002 version, they need not even tell that because it was made 64 years after the author's death. So it's beyond copyright. It is in the public domain. So now you understand what is public domain. Once upon a time, it was a copyrighted work. The term is expired. It is in the public domain. But still, if you do not acknowledge the author, what will you do? You will be doing plagiarism. So this is a simple example. Next one, please. So plagiarism is creative dishonesty, in academic dishonesty and unethical. So you are making a fool of the copyright holder who's probably dead and your audience who thinks that this work is yours. But in the end, if they come to know that you have just plagiarized it, your reputation will be spoiled. So this is how the world operates. And if we know what is unethical, we'll not do it. Next, please. So you can copy from some source and not acknowledge it. You will use somebody else's idea without referring to the person. Improper paraphrasing. When you write in your own words. If you don't do that, you're just copying and pasting, which is improper. Again, somebody else's work as your own. So these are all forms of plagiarism, which should be avoided in the academic context, especially if you're writing an MPhil, if you're writing a thesis for your master's. So this is not acceptable. Next, please. So some people just do word substitutions, and they'll slightly modify a published article from the net, lift it up and use it in their assignment. And if you're a teacher, you'll be offended. You know that this is coming from an insincere effort. So you will penalize your student actually. And there is a total lack of original thought. Anyway, you're doing a work, do an original one. If it is not, your reputation will be spoiled. Okay, next one, please. So sometimes people do it deliberately because they just want to finish off the work and submit something and get a degree. On the other hand, people may be not aware that there's a method of citation, that these things have to be presented in a particular work, especially in academics. Next one, please. So to avoid plagiarism, first is quote, who wrote that, paraphrase, write it in your own words, and summarize it in your own words. Then you will not be in trouble. So if we are aware of the citation methods, we'll not be in trouble and our thesis will be submitted properly and accepted. Otherwise, you'll be lingering there. So this is a very simple rule. Next slide, please. So there are plagiarism checkers. All the universities across the board use different plagiarism checkers. And if they have put this limit, more than 10% plagiarism is not allowed. So you will have to cut down your thesis, remodify it, rewrite it. Otherwise, it will be rejected because this is serious business. Next one, please. So a citation is very important because you are giving the information of the sources you have used, because it has to be an authentic source. You just cannot say somebody said so. It doesn't happen in scientific method. We have to go in the sequence and give proper credit. Otherwise, we'll not know whether you have taken it from a credible source or not. And since you have taken it from a credible source, you will cite your references, whatever you have used. Next one, please. So just see the bottom. It says Faradiba so-and-so in the blue. These are all author names. Next, the year of publication, 2003. Okay. The name of the paper written. So an insect-based essay, so-and-so. Published in a journal called Entomology. And then it says the volume number, page number. So this is the precise reference, how you will write a citation. And this is how it will come in the scientific literature. And when you are saying that this was said by so-and-so, and you'll keep it in the bracket and say by so-and-so et al. This year, and then that reference, the back reference is in the list of references. Short reference will come in the paragraph you're writing. So it's the right way of using your bibliography and your resources. You have to create a reference list in the end of the document. Next, please. So, for example, take this report. It says WIPO indicators 2022. So, and it gives the indication, Creative Commons, people can use it. And the citation is given, WIPO indicators 22, Geneva, and the URL is also given. It's the right way of quoting something that we have taken information from here. So the right citation method is this. Very simple. If you know, you will follow it. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble. Okay. Next slide, please. So basically, the author, the date of publication, the page number, the title of the publication, the publisher, the place of publication, retrieve date from an electronic source. So all that is very important. So for example, a journal article. So this is another one of my papers where you have work on BT Con presented in Plant Cell Reports. So it shows that this particular work was done by so-and-so from this lab, and this is the work done. If it's a book, you will give the ISBN number. If it's a patent, you'll give the patent or patent application number. Very simple. If you know that, you will provide it and it will be accepted. Next one, please. So these are the books and the ISBN numbers are given. So you can see that some are electronic publications, ebooks, and some are actual hard copies. So these are all 5 of my books, and everything has a ISBN number, which is the International Standard Book Identification Numbers. So there's a system, and if you know, you will use it. Then somewhere it is ASIN, because it's an ebook. So ebook will not have ISBN, it will have ASIN number. Again, that's a reference. So if you are using that reference, you can give that in your list of references. Next slide, please. So there's a citation policy. If in your thesis, you have taken 10 words from a source, the citation is essential. If you have taken more than 40 words, you'll put it under inverted commas and double quotation. So this is the right way of writing your thesis or your work. Next one, please. So UGC rules are very clear. The zero tolerance policy. And if you are an advisor, your the whole manuscript will be rejected. It is 10 to 40%. 40 to 60%, they will not allow you to be a PhD guide. And there will be no promotion given if it's more than that. And this is very, very serious because there is a zero tolerance policy towards plagiarism. And everybody should be aware of that. Next slide, please. So if you are citing, if it is an original idea, your idea, no need to cite. If it's common knowledge in your area of work, no need to cite. But if it is not common knowledge, it's specific knowledge, you will have to add a citation. Next one, please. So when you cite a reference, it will be further on. Say in 2003, I wrote a paper. In 2005, another person wrote a paper, they will give the reference. In 2013, somebody wrote a paper, they'll give the reference. So the citations will build up. It's very important, especially for academics to know this, because based on that, the citation index will be calculated. Next one, please. So the journal impact factor comes from somebody published a paper, and that paper was so unique that other people further on down the line in 10, 20 years of it's quoted throughout. That shows the importance of that particular work. So that's how the journals go through a very rigorous process to publish a paper. And if you have gone through that process and the person, the journal has accepted your work, then it has very high impact factor. So everybody talks about high impact factor journals, that you have a publication in a high impact factor. And there are a lot of predatory journals which have no value. So in an academic context, we should understand what is journal impact factor and which are the journals which you should try to publish in. Next one, please. So Nature has 42.3 impact factor. That's the highest impact factor, and the other ones also. So you want to publish your work in a reputed journal, not in predatory journals. And some journals ask you to pay money also. So that's very interesting. Next one, please. It's a kind of corruption and moral misconduct. So why that journal impact factor is important? Why the citation index is important? Because the NAC accreditation will be based on that. How many articles were published, how many times it was cited by the literature further on, how many people found it useful, whatever you had published. So that becomes a metrics. So NAC will see that you have put in your papers in Scopus or Web of Science. Then only it will have some value. Otherwise, your institution, your department will have no value for whatever you published. So it's a metrics. Next one, please. So whatever work we create, it should be creative and original, and publication will come only through high quality research. And if we know, we can inculcate that in our students as well. So laws are evolving and people are getting very, very aware of these. So please be aware and prevent plagiarism, but otherwise the reputation will be spoiled. Next one, please. So there's a precedence. And in this digital age, we are seeing so much of copying, pasting, and unethical things that, it's irritating. So first we have to determine what is IP, what is fair use, how to go about it. If we know that, we will not be stepping on other people's shoes and infringing their intellectual property. Next one, please. So there are factors. If something is for non-profit use, then it is doable, it is fair use. And if you're acknowledging the source in a proper manner, or if you're using a software which you have licensed, read the license terms, what you can do with it. Awareness is very, very important. Then only you can be sure that you're doing the right thing. Otherwise, you can land up in legal trouble. Next one, please. So be informed. don't get into legal trouble. Use material which is in public domain. Do it in a manner which is fair use. Give credit where it is due. Use Creative Commons. The CC symbol allows you to use it in a particular manner. And in case of software, you can use open source software. Let's discuss this. Next one, please. So in Delhi University, people were making course packs by photocopying from different authors. So people went to court. They said this particular photocopy wala is doing this course packs and this is illegal. So the court said this is for the benefit of the students. It's for a non-profit work. And the authors also said it's fine. If the students are using my work, it's fine. Let them cite the reference and use my work. We have no objection. So the court said it is copyright violation, but for a fair purpose. So let's consider it fair use because it's for educational use. So there are different examples and cases according to which the law itself will be defined. It's called a case law. Okay, next one, please. So the laws have to take care of the individual interest versus public interest. And at times the courts will put down rules. So for example, for the purpose of research, you can use a work, you can criticize or review a work. If you're a journalist, you're reporting on current events. If there's a judicial proceeding, people can mention your work. If you're performing for a non-paying audience, it's fair use. If you're taking money from people, then you have to share the money with the association who holds the rights. So anything you do, if you know you are doing it in the right manner and there's no commercial benefit, it may be fair use. So if you're aware, you will not do the mistake of getting into legal trouble. Next one, please. So on one hand is the Androids and the Firefox and the Wikipedia. On the other hand is Apple and so on and so forth. So you see that the free and open source softwares are there. Next slide, please. So the Apple and McAfee, all these are closed source, whereas Android and Linux and all that are open source. You can take a source code of Android and modify it. There are rules. So just follow the license terms and you can use it. So that will be considered fair use. But the iOS, there is completely proprietary. You cannot misuse it. Next one, please. So this open source model evolved from the free software movement because there were too many restrictive things happening and people could not innovate. So the whole idea is to increase innovation. That was not happening. So to preserve community access to the tools which allow us to do further innovation, the open source movement started and they said, we'll formulate workable license. You can take the guidance and you can take the technology and work on it and create something new for the benefit of the society. So that's how the open source happened. And people are feeling relieved because they can modify the source codes and all. Next one, please. So any application software or programming language, you can view, modify, depending on the license terms. You have to read the license term. You can evolve it further. And closed source software will be the iOS, the Apples. They will be on one side. Small group of people are involved. It's very expensive, but Android phones, everybody has, and it's pretty okay to buy a phone which is not so expensive, so that people are benefited. The society is benefit from the innovation that is happening. That's the logic. Next one, please. Yeah, next slide, please. So whatever you are using from the public domain, if you know what are the terms of use, you can use it. If you take a Shutterstock, so they'll say that not for commercial purposes. You can use it for your assignment, okay, fine. You're not making commercial benefit. But if you're using it for the logo of your company, they will come and put a copyright notice on you. Okay, so understand non-commercial use is allowed. Again, there will be specific license terms which you should follow. Next one, please. So any work of authorship which is copyright is done, the person is dead, 60 years have happened, is in public domain. So Principia Mathematica by Isaac Newton, a very good work, but it is in public domain. So you can use it, you can, there'll be no legal issue with that. So whatever is in public domain, that can be a resource for you. If you're a student or a teacher, Next one, please. The Creative Commons, again, it's a commons-friendly, commons-based development of enabling technologies and research tools. So they say that, okay, only for personal use, non-commercial. If you put some more, a barter system, I put my software, you put your software in the system and let other people modify it, it's fine. Copyleft. So we said copyright, they said copyleft. Chalo, you can use this. You can copy it, modify it, but you will cite the reference. So all those things are there in Creative Commons. Next slide, please. So how to search? Go to the databases. All these databases are there. You can search patents and trademarks and industrial designs, and everything will be available online. And you can search and ensure that you're not plagiarizing or not infringing on somebody else's intellectual property. It's out there. Just you be aware and use these tools. They are all free. Next one. So the thing is due diligence. One is awareness. You are aware these things exist. These are the IPRs. Another is, are you infringing? Are you accidentally infringing or you're deliberately doing it? If you're deliberately doing it, it's plagiarism and you can be in moral trouble. If it's intellectual property and infringing, you can be in legal trouble. So we don't want to do it. We should know what's going on in our area of work and use the things according to the terms and conditions given. Take permission from the author, acknowledge the resource, and use Creative Commons or public domain material, but please acknowledge the source so that people know that you're not trying to misappropriate a work. I think that's all from me. Thank you. And we'll take all the questions.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for enlightening us on your copyrights issue, which is a very dynamic aspect in research, where the quality of research in the world has to be promoted. That too. So higher education in India is enlarging its GR, where the quality has to be strengthened. So, which is a major focus of Government of India's policies, including UGC looks into this issue of how the quality research has to be published. One aspect is copyright, and you have focused both on ethical writing aspects also. Thank you so much for your presentation, which is very insightful to all the participants. And so, and we've opened the floor for questions, and the questions can be asked both to Prabha ma'am and Farah ma'am. And let me start with a clarificatory question to you, Farah ma'am.
Yeah.
Once the copyright is issued to an author, so lifetime of the author and plus 60 years.
60 years is the term.
So, and you quoted some Einstein work or something else. Once if it is after 60 years is over, it comes to a citation must be used, or it will be in public domain. Can you explain it? It is a mandatory to use a citation, right, as an ethical researcher.
Yes,
and once somebody doesn't use it, and that he or she will be not in a, so it'll be followed by a plagiarism issue. And who will take care that aspect? Somebody comes with an idea of Einstein, and I think you understand that.
Now, let me tell you two things. One is, whatever IP is there, there's a term to it. For example, patent is for 20 years. But in 20 years, you know how technology is. In 2 years, it will be overcome. The generation 1 to 5 has gone less than 20 years. So there's a technology life cycle. Similarly, copyright is given so that the author gets benefit for certain time and gets revenue from it. But once whatever work, the knowledge is there in the world, we have shared, you know. So we stand on the shoulders of giants. That's what Isaac Newton said. So if we have created a work today, a scientific work or an artistic work, there is a collective wisdom of the society. So there are two ways. One is, when work was created, was given IPR so that the person is benefited, but it also adds to the collective wisdom of the society. So that once it's the copyright or the patent term is expired, it goes to the public domain and people can use it. So I'll give an example of patented drugs. So 20 years is the time. So some American company has taken a drug patent On the 20th year, the moment the patent expires, somebody called a Dr. Reddy's Lab has already created a dossier, and the 21st year, they will give the same medicine at a very low cost to the Indian public. So you see how it works. If you know what are the rules, you'll play by the rules, you'll not be illegal. Same with copyright. Somebody has written a book, you made it into a movie, but when you made a movie, you have to pay to the author. But after the term has expired, and still you will acknowledge that, yes, Devdas is a wonderful work, and we should acknowledge. And the whole public knows, okay, you cannot fool people. You cannot say, this is my work. Okay, it's inspired by or adapted by, and people will acknowledge it right on the poster that this work was inspired by so-and-so, work by so-and-so. So we as a society have a collective responsibility to acknowledge our inventors, acknowledge our artists. So we benefit from the collective wisdom. We acknowledge the sources, and especially in an academic environment where you are submitting a thesis for a degree, there are very strict rules. So if we know how to play by the rules and not get into trouble, your degree will be accepted. If you're an author, you're writing something, write it beautifully. Fine. So that's the rule. Okay. So understand the terms. When the term expires, what are the benefits to the society? If it's in public domain, you can modify. You can say that I took Shakespeare's work and I have translated it into Kannada and I have presented it as a play, and people appreciate it. But people will know this is somebody's work that you have taken and modified. So that's how the work goes on. And please acknowledge the sources. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. So now Professor Chandrika want to ask a query.
Yeah.
Chandrika, ma'am, you can unmute and you can raise your clarification question. Chandrika, ma'am.
No queries, sir. No queries. By
Okay.
accidentally, I've.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah.
You want to ask?
Yeah. Any other questions?
Prabha ma'am or Farah ma'am, where do we stand? India stands with respect to our copyrights position with respect to global number.
There is a global copyright order, and we stand, and all the laws that are there in India are actually TRIPS compliant. All, if you take patent, trademark, geographical indications, plant variety protection, everything is in conjunction with the trade-related intellectual properties. So whatever rules are given there, we are just compliant, and we have added something new. For example, plant variety protection. So we have put it as Plant Variety Protection and Farmers' Right Act. Okay, because India is an agrarian economy, so we want to acknowledge the custodians of the traditional knowledge. So we have given it as a Farmers' Right Act. So we have created a system in addition to the TRIPS rules. We have created our own versions so that our society is benefited. So you see how it operates. So we have a global system of the WIPO TRIPS. We put all the laws in accordance with that, fully compliant, plus we add something onto it, because traditional knowledge, plant variety protection is something which is unique to India. India is a biodiversity hotspot. We have such wonderful natural resources, and we have such wonderful arts and artisans. So how do we protect them? How do we protect our farmers? How do we conserve our resources, our biodiversity, our arts and crafts? So that's why we have given an extra touch to it. So our all our biodiversity laws are in accordance with our requirements. So we are fully compliant, and we have additional benefits given to our farmers. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. My query was just where do we stand with respect to global ranking with respect to copyrights? Is it we are somewhere top 10 country in the world or something like?
Copyright is a very loose right. Okay, it's about.
Is it somebody record it, ma'am? Is it somebody record it? I mean, with respect
there
to
are statistics. I can give you the statistics from WIPO, and Prabha can also add. There are innovation indexes and all that. So, but copyright is quite a generic law. It applies to academics and arts and all that. But there are data available on WIPO website. I can give you the data.
Thank you, ma'am. We will be very happy. Our participants will be very happy if we can get the slides of both our presentations. If you don't mind, we'll share. You can share with us, and we'll put it in our so the participants' emails.
Yeah, so I have emailed
Yeah.
my deck. It should be available with you, with ma'am, with it's his name, ma'am's email.
Yeah, Farah ma'am's
Yeah.
presentation is available in my email.
Okay, ma'am. Sundrali, ma'am, you want to ask anything?
Madam, regarding music,
Yeah.
any school of music can copyright be taken? Because see, while playing veena, we have Mysore Bani, we call it. There is a particular way of playing veena by Mysoreans. So
Yes.
such a thing copyright can be taken.
So any performing art, okay, you can record it and you can take a register of copyright. But the thing is, if it's very generic, you may not get. So please understand, something which is very specific can be IP protected, but something which is generic, you have to create a form. Say you write a book on that, and you can have a copyright on that. But the performing art again is performed by a community of artists. So how do you stand with that? So there'll be technical issues with that. How to protect something? For example, I gave the right of the Singers' Right Association, the Bollywood music. So they have created an association, and they will have a collective revenue, and the revenue will be shared by the collective right organization. So similarly, that can be worked out. So the modalities can be worked out. So, for example, there's a music piece by A.R. Rahman. So he's the author of that, and the producer will have the arrangement with the music director about the intellectual and the commercial aspects. So case by case, there are rules and laws that you can follow. And if you feel something is unique, you can write about it, create a tangible work, which is a recording, and you can put a copyright on it. So I have a YouTube channel. I sing and I put. So the copyright, somewhere I have sung a film song, so that it will, the software itself, the YouTube software itself will say that this is copyrighted material. So we'll say song cover. We'll not say that this is my copyright. I'll say that I'm just covering the song. I'm just acknowledging, attributing. But some are original work. Some music composition is your original. So it will be considered your copyright. So you put it on YouTube, it will say it's your copyright. If you put somebody else's work, it will immediately give you the thing that this is copyrighted by Jagjit Singh or copyrighted by somebody and somebody. So this is how practically it works. You can go and see my YouTube channel also. So a couple of them, which are film songs, will be say copyright issue. And you will have to say not original, derived work, or just doing a cover. So this is how we acknowledge. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
I think if there are no more questions, we can close it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sir?
yeah, ma'am.
Please ask
So
sir to give
yeah, yeah. Anybody want to raise any queries, or I request Nadia Obed,
he
ma'am.
has raised a hand.
Puneet, do you have any questions? I hope we don't have any questions. Nazia, ma'am, please take over a mic. So for vote of thanks. By the by, our principal sir, due to the paucity of time, one, and is it the other meeting? So yes, send a text message of the presidential remarks. I posted. Sir is online. Sir, we request Professor Srinivas Nayak sir to give a presidential remarks.
Okay.
Sir, you can please give your remarks, sir.
Okay. Very good afternoon to all. I am very happy to that college. Our college and GFC Devanelli jointly organized this webinar in association with VTPC, Department of Commerce and Industry, Government of Karnataka. Today we are living in global competition. To all academic excellency need to be protected to give further encouragement to research. I hope the respective webinar had helped to all participants in thinking and working on research ethics and copyright aspect in their future publications. In the coming days, we will be having many research promotions measures. My special thanks to Srimati Prabhavati Rao, VTPC. I extend my regards to today's invited speaker, Dr. Farina Deba, for her very inspiring and insightful talk. I should thank Professor Sundarvalli, who is coordinated with the VTPC. I extended my thanks to Dr. Nagesh Ji, our IQSC and PG coordinator, who is helped to us in executing this webinar. I appreciate to support of by DFC Devanelli. Thank you, one and all. Wish you happy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So for giving your presidential remarks, and then I request Professor Nazia Obed to give a vote of thanks. And before that, we have shared a link in the WhatsApp chat group. So feedback form. Once the feedback is filled, all the participants will get a digital certificate. Now, mic to Nazia Obed, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks and acknowledge all those who contributed to the success of this program. On behalf of Government Arts College, Bengaluru and Government First Grade College, Devanahalli, I extend a heartfelt gratitude to Srimati Padmavati Rao, Facilitator, IP Initiatives, VTPC, Department of Industries and Commerce, Government of Karnataka, who spared time from her busy schedule to grace the occasion. Madam, I thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. Your enlightening address made the event interesting and meaningful. I would like to convey warm regards and sincere thanks to Dr. Farah Diba, Senior IP Specialist, CMR University, Bengaluru, for her engaging and insightful presentation. Madam, you truly made this day enlightening for us. We hope to work with you in future. I would like to express our sincere gratitude to Dr. P.T. Srinivas Nayak, Principal, Government Arts College, Bengaluru. We are truly appreciative of his support and guidance throughout the planning and execution of this event. We are grateful to Professor Manjaya D., Principal, Government First Grade College, Devanahalli, for his constant motivation and gracious presence. I would like to thank Professor Sundarvalli, Head, Department of Economics, Government First Grade College, Devanahalli, and Dr. Nagesh G., Coordinator, IQSC, and Associate Professor, Department of Economics, Government Arts College, who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make this event successful. I take this opportunity to thank the faculty and administrative staff of Government Arts College, Bengaluru, and Government First Grade College, Devanahalli, for their cooperation and support. Finally, I thank our dear students for their enthusiastic participation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your vote of thanks. And so it's really wonderful webinar which has been happened without any hurdles. Thank you so much, everybody, and take care. And please fill your feedback forms. Thank you, one and all. We end the meet.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Farah ma'am and Prabhavati.